Hey, it's Zane here and welcome back. Before I get started in today's video, I just want to say a big thank you to those of you who have recently joined and subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate that. It just tells me that I'm on the right track and that I should keep sharing what I know about Bitcoin and my perspective on this amazing monetary technology. If you're new here, welcome, and I'd really appreciate it if you get value today to give this video a like and perhaps to share it with others if you feel that it's important, and also leave me a comment if you get something of value today. But today I want to talk about how Bitcoin really is an ego test in many ways. And what I mean by that is Bitcoin is something that it's really, really easy to overlook and to dismiss and to disregard and to think that it's not important, or there's a lot of wealthy people who think that Bitcoin's a waste of time. They shouldn't pay any attention to it. And so there's people at all different ends of the spectrum financially who dismiss Bitcoin. The people I feel sorry for the most are the ones that truly do need it and they just don't realize it yet. And I think there's millions of people who are in that boat. I talk to people pretty much every week. I do one-on-one consultations with a lot of different people from all walks of life, and I constantly come across people who kind of hear about Bitcoin. Their life's busy. They haven't really given it the time they deserve. It deserves. They come back 2-3 years later. They have another look at it. But for whatever reason, they just find it really difficult to take that first step. And I can kind of relate to this because I heard about Bitcoin in 2013 and gave it a little bit of airtime then, but I was very busy in my career at that time, and I didn't really pay much attention to it. And then of course it was some 4 years later that I started to dig into it and started reading, and got my hands on the Bitcoin standard in 2018, and then got involved in Bitcoin in 2018. And sometimes it does take time for you to realize and for the penny to drop as to what Bitcoin truly represents. And it requires you to, I guess, let go of any preconceived beliefs that you have about money, and how Bitcoin can solve those problems and how it has been engineered to solve those problems. And a lot of people forget that there's a reason why Bitcoin was released to the world by this anonymous figure known as Satoshi Nakamoto, but it was released in a very timely manner on the back of the GFC, the global financial crisis, which of course began with the fall of Lehman Brothers in 2008, September 2008. And then the white paper was released about a month later, the Bitcoin white paper. And that's something that you can Google online and read yourself. Really interesting document. And that was released to a small forum of cryptographers. And then, of course, since then, Bitcoin has really evolved from this crazy idea as being internet money, just by some sort of cypherpunk guys and some computer nerds, and no one really paid much attention to it. But of course, over the years, it has evolved to become an asset that the whole world is now paying attention to, and I believe is going to transform the entire global financial system. But the only way you get to that realization is if you actually take the time to learn about it. And I truly believe that it doesn't matter where you are in your life financially. If you want to see the world become a better place, then you really should be paying attention to Bitcoin, because what Bitcoin does is not just about money go up technology. It's not just about seeing your purchasing power increase over time. It's not just the fact that it's the best performing asset on earth that's most important. It's the fact that it causes you to begin to go on a journey of actually learning about this thing that we call money. And most people spend a lifetime never actually learning anything about money, the history of money, how it's evolved, how we ended up on this fiat system that we have, where there's no checks and balances, where the currency, the paper currency, is actually backed by nothing anymore since 1971, when the gold standard was severed. And most people just go through their entire life working like a mouse on a wheel for this thing called money, not really paying any attention to what that is. And not only that, but the way that the whole system has been corrupted to benefit a very select few. And so that is something that takes time, and you have to be open-minded, and you have to be willing to dedicate some time to be inquisitive, to actually learn about this stuff. And I believe that everybody will eventually be forced to do it. Even people who are filthy rich, I think, unless they're kind of at the end of their journey now, and they're going to pass on, a huge amount of wealth to the next generation. So maybe not them, but I think the next generation, if they're wanting to really protect and preserve the wealth that they have, then at some point they're going to be forced to look at Bitcoin. And so there are lots of reasons for this. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why I think that everybody is going to be forced to look at Bitcoin in time, but only to say that if you care about not just your financial future, but the state of the world and how everything revolves around this debt-based monetary system that has really been on life support since the GFC in 2008. Nothing was ever fixed in 2008. None of the institutions that should have failed were allowed to fail. There was no true reset of the system. And so all that they did was they just put a huge band-aid over the problem. And we've got to a point now where the problem is not just a wound, but it is a serious terminal cancer situation. And so, most people still don't see that, even though we have a very evident and obvious cost of living crisis, which everybody sees and feels to some extent, even if not for themselves. I'm sure they know people, or people in your family, or maybe your kids, or people that who are doing it tough because of the cost of living and inflation. Everybody sees the growing wealth gap between the haves and the have-nots. Those who were fortunate enough to have assets prior to 2020, when the health crisis came along, they've now seen their wealth double and triple, and even quadruple in some cases, basically through no fault of their own, other than just the dynamics of the situation and the fact that inflation only benefits those who own and who are rich in assets. And so, but there's a reality to this, that we're going to reach a crunch point, a crossroads moment, where even if you want to be the wealthiest person in town and a beneficiary of this debt-based fiat inflationary system, you've got to really start to contemplate the cost to society and to your surroundings and the country in general when you have this enormous growing wealth gap, when you have the middle class that starts to collapse, like we're seeing now. Like, when you have millions of people in the country who are struggling just to put food on the table, just to pay their mortgage. All of these issues are issues that will eventually impact everybody, even those at the top. And they start to really strike at the heart of the fabric of society. And so as a Bitcoiner, you start to become very conscious of not just your own personal situation, but the state of the world around you. And that's what I love about Bitcoin, because the more you dive down the rabbit hole and the more you get to engage with other personalities, brilliant minds in this space, who all have their own perspective and take on what Bitcoin represents, the more it just opens your mind to a better world and the possibilities and how we move forward and the impact of broken money on the system that we currently have. And if we can have a return to sound money, money that cannot be corrupted, money where you get to actually protect and preserve your economic energy and value, if we can have a return to that, then life gets better for everyone. And so this is why, for many people, Bitcoin is an ego test. A lot of people dismiss Bitcoin, because it's a paradigm shift. They struggle to get their head around the fact that Bitcoin represents the world's first fixed supply deflationary money technology. So in other words, when you start to plug your life into Bitcoin, what you notice is that the price of everything around you actually goes down, not up. That is a paradigm shift because we've never had that system before. And, if you've listened to Jeff Booth, who wrote a book recently called The Price of Tomorrow, Jeff is one of the true genius minds in the Bitcoin space, and you can look him up on YouTube. He's done many recent interviews that are absolutely mind-blowing. But he talks a lot about how, the world has never seen a true natural free market. And we're all led to believe that that's what we live in, but we actually don't. Because if we lived in a natural true free market, what would happen is that the cost of everything would actually go down over time, not up, including the price of homes. Because we have economies of scale, we have competition, we have entrepreneurship, we have efficiencies, we have all of these things that we get better at doing over time as human beings. We just become more efficient at creating and building and producing. And in that environment, the price of everything over time should actually go down. But instead, what's happening is the price of everything is for the most part, actually going up. And so that in itself is difficult for people to have that moment, that realization where, wow, that is something I need to do a little homework on and to investigate. And that takes time, and you have to be willing to step outside of the current paradigm in order to learn about the new one. It's a paradigm shift. It's really easy to jump to conclusions. A lot of people just take on face value. Somebody said something at the pub, Bitcoin's a scam, they're going to ban it, it's bad for the environment, it's going to zero, it's a Ponzi scheme. All of these different narratives that people who have done no study whatsoever on Bitcoin come up with. And then, people sort of subliminally listen to that and it sticks in their mind and they get on about their life and they don't take any time to actually challenge that and learn about it themselves. So that's the second problem. The third problem is that to learn about Bitcoin, it actually requires something that 95% of the population are not prepared to do. And that is to do some work. It actually requires you to actually dedicate some time and energy to studying it. Because I've never met a single person who has spent more than 10 hours learning about Bitcoin, listening to podcasts, reading books, watching documentaries, who has come out of that going, oh, this is crap, this makes no sense. Nobody does that. The only people who say that are those that have done no work on Bitcoin whatsoever. And so this is why it is an ego test, because you need to be willing to jump over and leap over all of these preconceived ideals and notions that you have about Bitcoin in order to begin learning about it. And I talk a lot about this in the webinars that I've been running recently, and the 3 reasons why people dismiss Bitcoin. It's a paradigm shift, it's easy to jump to conclusions, and it takes work to learn about it. But I really believe the same thing in the words of the great Michael Saylor, that Bitcoin is a monetary technology that whose time has come. It cannot be stopped. Everyone's going to need it. And right now, the issue is that 95% of the population still know nothing about it. And so that's why I'm talking about Bitcoin. It's why I'm sharing about it, because I want to try and help people to come to Bitcoin, to understand what it is, how it can make their life better. And I think the more of us that are out there sharing this message, the better off that we're going to be, and the next generation's going to be, and so forth. But the reality is that whether it takes you a week, a month, a year, or 10 years to come to Bitcoin, I believe that eventually everybody's going to need it. And this is why so many people do say in Bitcoin that eventually people get Bitcoin at the price they deserve, because they're going to wait to a point where, you know, Bitcoin's sitting at $1 million, 10x from where it is now. And that's the time where they're going to start to actually pay attention to it. Whereas if they took the time now, they'd benefit from all of this mass adoption that we're on the cusp of seeing. And you've only got to look at the adoption curve now, you know, in relative to the iPhone or relative to the internet, and Bitcoin is on a perfect trajectory, mirroring what went on with the iPhone and the internet in terms of where it's going. And you know, there's a law out there called Metcalfe's law, which basically stipulates that the value of a network is relative to its rate of adoption. And what we're seeing now is that the rate of Bitcoin adoption is mirroring what happened with the iPhone and the internet, and that's why everybody can very confidently say that it's on track to reach $1 million US by the year 2030, and some say much sooner than that, based on all that data. So anyway, learn about Bitcoin now. It'll start to open your mind. I always say that, you know, learn enough about Bitcoin as quickly as you can in order to take the first step and to actually own some Satoshis, own some Bitcoin. You know, learn about that process on actually acquiring Bitcoin and then getting it into your own hardware wallet, and then go on a journey of just learning more, because the more you learn, the more you'll want to park your economic energy into this thing, because you'll start to realize that over time, when you live on a Bitcoin standard, when you start to embrace Bitcoin, everything shifts and life only gets better. So I want to leave it there today, but thank you for tuning in. I appreciate that. I hope you got some insight, some value today, something that you can share with others who are interested in Bitcoin. Please like, share, subscribe, and by all means leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. This is Zane signing out. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.